We considered them savages, not because they were weak, but because they chose chaos over order, emotion over logic, instinct over planning. My species of Aurelians had transcended emotion millennia ago. We viewed it as a disease, a relic of biological inefficiency. Our world was stable. Our minds were silent. We shared thoughts without speech, directed energy without friction, and shaped stars without ever feeling joy, pain, or love. And then we found Earth. The first survey reports were condescending. Unstructured society, emotional volatility. Species operates on a rational impulse. A note of curiosity, resilience in conflict despite inferior technology. Still, nothing about them seemed worth fearing. They didn't understand the stars. They hadn't even united their world. They killed each other for resources they could have shared. They worshipped invisible beings. They sang when they suffered, laughed when they lost. I was selected to go, not to conquer. Not yet. My role was to observe, report, and assist in determining if they were a threat or an opportunity. I landed in what they call city. Vibrant, loud, cluttered. The first day, my senses were overwhelmed, sense lights, overlapping voices with no cohesion. I adopted a form they could accept. Humanoid, female, pale skin, dark hair, a blank slate. They mistook my confusion for shyness. They offered help without being asked, smiled, gestured. One even handed me a hot drink and said, "Rough day." They were maddeningly kind. I met him on my third day. He approached while I was struggling to understand a machine they use for food. His voice was warm. "Need a hand?" I didn't recognize the idiom, but understood the intent. I let him assist. He explained each step, not with arrogance, but patience. He asked where I was from. I lied, a distant island. He told me his name. I gave him one I had prepared. Lyra. He said it was beautiful. He laughed easily. He didn't hide his thoughts. His face showed everything. Curiosity, amusement, mild confusion. He asked questions with genuine interest, even when the answers were trivial. I watched him, at first, because I was told to. But soon I watched him for reasons I couldn't quantify. He brought me to a market the next week. I studied how he navigated crowds, smiled at strangers, bartered without aggression, thanked every vendor. He introduced me to music. "This one always makes me feel better," he said, playing a melody filled with soft sorrow and triumphant crescendo. I asked why the sounds mattered. "It helps me remember who I am," he said. His words didn't compute. Identity was a constant in Virelian minds. Immutable, fixed. He invited me to dinner. I knew what the gesture implied. Intimacy. I accepted, not from desire, but data gathering. Or so I told myself. His home was cluttered with objects, photos, books, handmade gifts. I asked why he kept them. They remind me I'm loved. He served food he had prepared himself. Primitive, inefficient, yet warm. I observed how he watched me for reactions. I mimicked pleasure. He smiled, pleased. I almost told him it wasn't real. Almost. Afterward, we sat in silence. Not the telepathic kind. A real, awkward quiet. Yet it didn't feel empty. He looked at the stars through his window and asked, "Do you ever wonder if we're alone out there?" I said nothing. He turned to me. "I hope we're not. But if they're out there, I hope they're kind." I could have laughed. Kindness was seen as a weakness in our species. And yet, in that moment, it felt stronger than anything we had ever built. I began submitting delayed reports. Sanitized, demotionalized. Subject exhibits cooperation-based survival behavior. High empathy levels. I omitted the way he'd stayed up all night, fixing a stranger's broken vehicle. I excluded how he'd taken care of an injured animal with no gain to himself. I told myself the data wasn't relevant. The more time I spent with him, the more I noticed the way he treated others, not just with kindness, but with consistency. Whether a child, an elder, a stranger, he offered the same respect. He believed in second chances. He believed people could change. No Virelian would think that. We were designed to be static, efficient, predictable. He told me once, "You don't talk much about your past." I lied. Again, it's complicated. He didn't press. Instead, he said, when you're ready, I'll listen. No Virelian would wait. Waiting was inefficient. Weeks passed. One night, he shared a story of loss, his mother, to a disease they couldn't cure in time. He had been young. He'd held her hand while she slipped away. He cried, quietly, unashamed, "Do you miss her still?" I asked, every day. His pain didn't debilitate him. It defined him. Strength through sorrow. Purpose born of loss. My species would have erased the memory, cleaned the neural residue. Yet he held it close, because it shaped who he was. That night, I returned to my quarters and touched my own cheek where a tear had fallen. My first, not part of the mission, not a result of stimuli. Uncontrolled, unexpected. I tried to file a report the next morning. I couldn't complete it. Every sentence failed to capture what I felt. I watched him interact with a child in distress, not his own. He knelt, spoke gently, made the child laugh. No reward expected, no witnesses to applaud, pure empathy. I stared, unable to explain the ache in my chest. I reviewed Virelian doctrine. We had cataloged over 1,000 species. None had this depth of contradiction. Violent but nurturing. Fragile but unbreakable. Illogical but somehow... Right. He offered me a book. You'll like this. It's about someone who doesn't fit in. I read it, slowly. The protagonist's search for meaning in a world that didn't understand him. He made mistakes. He hurt others. He grew. He loved. He changed. He became more than he was. And I realized change is the most human thing of all. When I returned the book, he smiled. "What did you think?" "I think," I replied, voice shaking, "that I understand something now." He tilted his head. "What's that?" "That you are not primitive." He laughed. "Thanks. I guess." I almost told him the truth that night, that I was not from this world, that I had been sent to observe, to assess, that I was not human, not even close. Instead, I asked, "Why do you keep trusting people when they've let you down?" He paused, then said, "Because I've let people down too, and I'd want them to give me another chance." That was the moment, not the smile, not the kindness, not even the kiss that hadn't yet happened. That was when I realized I admired him, not as a subject, not as a curiosity, but as someone I wanted to understand, to protect, to share time with, someone who made me feel, and that terrified me. I began avoiding him. I told myself it was necessary for the mission, for clarity. I filed a full report for the first time in weeks. Clinical, sterile, empty, but the ache didn't leave. He came looking for me after days of silence. I hadn't expected that. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked. "No," I said. "Then why are you pushing me away?" I didn't have the words. Not then. He stepped back. "You don't have to tell me anything. But if you ever want to, I'm here." I thought about returning home, ending the assignment, wiping the memories. But I knew I wouldn't. I couldn't, because this planet, this chaotic, emotional, irrational place, had taught me something I didn't know I lacked. Returned the next day. He was outside, fixing a broken light. He saw me, smiled. I stepped closer. "I'm sorry," I said. He nodded. "For what?" "For leaving. For lying." He waited. "I'm not from your world," I said. "I came to study you. My people think you're primitive." He didn't move. "And now?" he asked. "Now I think they're wrong." He didn't respond immediately. Finally, he said, "Thank you for telling me." I blinked. "You're not angry?" "I'm confused, but I trust you." "Why?" He shrugged. "Because you came back." I wanted to say more, but no words fit. So I stayed. And for the first time, I wasn't just studying humanity. I was becoming human, a soul. That night, I listened to the music he loved. I read the book again. I watched recordings of our conversations. I studied every word, every laugh, every silence. And I realized I missed him, not as data, not as a curiosity, as a person. I had broken protocol. Revealing my origin should have triggered a recall, a purge, even exile. But no signal came. Either they hadn't detected my confession, or they were watching, curious to see how far I'd fall. Maybe they expected me to correct course, to manipulate him, to finish the mission. But I didn't care. He didn't treat me differently. He asked questions, not with suspicion, but wonder. What's it like where you're from? Do you feel things like we do? I answered what I could. I told him about our floating cities, an emotionless consensus, about engineered minds and erased memories. I told him we had eradicated war, disease, and pain. He asked, "Did you eradicate love too?" I hesitated. "Yes." He didn't flinch. He just whispered, "That's a shame." We spent more time together. He took me to places he called sacred, not temples, but forests, oceans, mountains. He said the earth reminded him that he was small, and that made him feel peaceful. I didn't understand. My species had conquered their sky, harnessed stars, rewritten biology, but we never stood in awe of them. Humans did, and that reverence gave them strength we lacked. One evening, under the stars, he asked, "Are there others like you here?" "No," I replied. "Are they coming?" "Maybe." "What will they do if they come?" I didn't answer. He nodded slowly. I figured. Still, he held my hand. Each touch, each glance, taught me more than the archives of 1,000 civilizations. He laughed at things that weren't logical. He cried over strangers' pain. He argued passionately with people he loved, then forgave them. Nothing about him was efficient, but everything about him was alive. I began recording a new kind of report, not for my superiors, but for myself. Entry 41. He helped an elderly neighbor today. Spent hours repairing something that wasn't his. He refused payment. Entry 49. He told a joke so bad it made me laugh. A real laugh. My throat hurt. I didn't want it to stop. Entry 57. I looked at him and forgot I was not one of them. Then came the warning. A pulse through my neural link. A silent message from orbit. Contact report overdue. Presence required. High command assessing potential contamination. I knew what that meant. If I didn't return, they would come. I considered leaving. I almost did. I even wrote him a note. "You changed me," it said, and I don't know if that means I'm lost or found. But I couldn't go. Instead, I told him everything. About the mission, the evaluations, the risk, my species' disdain for his kind. I waited for anger, fear, betrayal. He only asked, "So what now?" "I don't know," I said. "Well, what do you want?" "I want to stay." "Then stay." Just like that. No ultimatums. No drama. He chose me. That night, I removed the neural implant. It was a crude operation, painful and messy. My connection to the hive was severed. I collapsed. He held me through the fever, through the convulsions. I screamed. I wept. I felt everything. For the first time, I truly felt. And still he stayed. When I awoke, he smiled. "Welcome back." I wasn't sure who I was anymore. Not Virilian. Not fully human. Something in between. But I didn't fear it. He called it becoming. The days blurred into something beautiful. We lived simply. Talked for hours. Sometimes we didn't speak at all, and still everything was said. I began creating. Art, music, things I never knew I was capable of. He told me they were raw and imperfect, like the best things in life. Then they came. The sky split open. Silent vessels appeared over major cities. Virilian craft, observation class. No weapons visible, but I knew better. Each ship was a scalpel, capable of removing entire populations with precision. People panicked. The news broadcasted images of terror. Military scrambled. No weapons would matter. My people didn't conquer with bombs. They sterilized with thought. He looked at me. "Is this your fault?" "Yes." "Do you regret it?" "No." He nodded. "Then let's fix it." We traveled toward one of the landing zones. I knew the procedure. The ships would not communicate with his governments. They would wait for me. I stood beneath the vessel, my skin prickling from the ambient psychic pressure. I was being scanned, measured, judged, broadcast initiated. A voice in my head, not a voice at all, but pressure. You are compromised. Mission incomplete. Emotional contamination confirmed. Return for cleansing. I refuse. You lack authority. To decline. Your actions threaten planetary stability. They threaten your stability, not theirs. The species is volatile, primitive, incapable of unifying. Yet they create, feel, and forgive. They fight their own darkness. You simply erase it. Silence. Then you empathize. You identify. You are no longer Virelian. I know. Then you are nothing. No, I'm more than I was. I turned to him. He took my hand. His heart beat fast, but he didn't step away. You're watching, aren't you? I said aloud. Then see what humanity really is. He didn't understand my words, but he understood the look in my eyes. He pulled me close and kissed me. A human act. Illogical. Inefficient. Perfect. The pressure from the ship spiked. Then nothing. They were gone. No lights. No sound. Just vanished into the clouds. He exhaled. What happened? I think I passed the test. He laughed. That was a test? Everything is. That night, I wrote a final message. Not for my people. For myself. They saw him as primitive. But I see the future in his eyes. In the following weeks, the world slowly adjusted. No attacks came. No contact was made. Rumors spread. Conspiracy theories bloomed. But life continued. So did we. He taught me how to cook. I taught him how to read stars. He showed me how to argue. I showed him how to listen, without words. We made each other better. Not perfect, but better. He once asked, "Do you think your people will come back?" They might. And if they do, I'll be ready. We trained together. He showed me how to defend myself, how to run, how to adapt. I showed him how to anticipate emotion, how to feel patterns, how to focus a storm of thought into a spear. We didn't prepare for war. We prepared to live. Every morning, he kissed my forehead and said, "Another primitive day." And I reply, "The best kind." I still saw flashes, dreams, or echoes of the hive. Cold stars, empty corridors, minds without faces. I pitied them now. Their silence wasn't peace. It was absence. They had edited themselves into perfection and erased what made them worth preserving. He made me see that. One day, he said, "I want you to meet my family." Fear hit me harder than any fleet ever could. They would know I wasn't normal. My speech patterns, my gaps in knowledge, my everything. He held my hand. "You'll be fine. They'll love you." And they did. His mother hugged me. His father grilled me. His sister teased me. They welcomed me, not because they understood, but because he loved me, and to them, that was enough. I wanted to cry again. This time I did. Later, alone under the stars, he whispered, "So, do you believe in love now?" I said, "I believe in you." He grinned. Close enough. I rested my head on his chest, listening to the rhythm of a heart that had changed the world. My world. And for the first time, I hoped the Virelians were still watching, because they needed to see what I saw. Not weakness, but humanity. And in it, everything we'd lost. Everything we needed to become again. The seasons changed. I learned to feel time through its movement. The crunch of leaves beneath our feet, the sting of frost on my cheek, the hum of insects in the summer heat. Time wasn't marked by solar rotations or mission cycles anymore. It was marked by our days together. We moved into a small place on the edge of a forest, where the signal interference was strongest and where, despite the fear in the back of my mind, I could breathe. He built shelves for my books, even though I read by absorbing data. He didn't care. He wanted me to experience stories the human way. "You have to hold the story," he said, "or it won't hold you." He wasn't poetic, not in the practice way, but his truths were deeper than data streams. One morning, I felt again. The pulse. A distant, low-frequency ripple. Virelian technology. But it was different this time. Not observation, not control. A message. Subject. Virilian defector. Directive change authorized. The hive had altered its protocols. I was no longer marked for retrieval. I was something else now. A curiosity. A precedent. They wanted to study me. I didn't respond. They couldn't understand what had changed, because they had never felt change. They only observed it, calculated it, stripped it to variables and probabilities. But I had lived it, grown through it. I wasn't theirs anymore. He noticed I was quiet that day. He didn't ask, just brought me tea and sat beside me. His silence wasn't avoidance. It was presence. He always knew when words would break the moment. Later that night, I broke it anyway. They're watching again. I whispered. He put his arm around me. Let them. We got nothing to hide. I stared at the fire. They want to see what I've become. And what do you think you become? I don't know, but I'm not afraid of it. His eyes met mine. Then they should be. A month later, it happened. A delegation landed. No grand ships this time. A single cloaked vessel. It arrived silently, positioned itself above the same clearing where I first rejected the hive, and waited, not for dominance, but for invitation. I went alone. He didn't try to stop me. I trust you, he said. But remember, they don't know what love is. You might scare them. I almost smiled. Good. The craft opened. Inside were 3 Virilians, unarmed, unlinked, dressed in neutral robes rather than command suits. I recognized them from the collective's inner circle. Analysts. One had reviewed my mission profile. Another had purged emotion from thousands of agents. The third, she was the one who designed me. I expected purifiers, I said, not philosophers. You are the purifier now, one replied. Another added, you are infected, yet you thrive. Infection implies harm, I said. What I found was healing. They studied me, not with suspicion, but hunger, for understanding, for what I had. They walked with me through the woods, asked about the trees, the soil, the way I touched the earth without gloves. Then they asked about him. He is the Axis, I said. He showed me what we forgot. The designer stepped forward. Her voice carried the cold curiosity of our kind. We do not understand what made you bond with this primitive. You won't. Not until you let go of control. Control is survival. No, I said, control is stagnation. You survive, but you don't live. They didn't argue. Virilians rarely do. They simply logged the moment, the phrases, the tone. But one of them paused. If others chose as you did, could they survive disconnection? They'd suffer first, I said. But yes, eventually. And would they find what you found? Only if they're brave enough. They returned to their ship. Before departing, the eldest turned and spoke. We may return. You should. Then they vanished. I returned to the cabin. He was waiting, coffee in hand. So, they're confused. Of course. You didn't threaten to conquer them, did you? No. I offered them freedom. He raised an eyebrow. That's more terrifying. We laughed. The weeks that followed were calm, until the broadcast came. Earth's global network lit up. A Virilian public message, translated, decrypted, distributed. It was a declaration, but not of war or peace. A question. Does humanity wish to engage in mutual exchange of ideological evolution? Governments scrambled. Debates exploded. But the message wasn't meant for institutions. It was meant for individuals. Humans began to reply, not with strategy, but with stories, messages, music, personal logs. They sent poems, memories, questions. They flooded the void with the messiest, rawest, most human transmissions imaginable. And the Virilians listened. Connection bloomed. I wasn't the only one anymore. Others came forward, Virilians who had secretly watched humans for years, who had felt envy, awe, even longing. They stepped out of the hive, shedding their silence, asking for more. Some called it the Second Renaissance. We called it the Becoming. He and I traveled then. He spoke at gatherings. I translated for defectors. Together we taught not just data, but empathy. Our love wasn't special anymore. It had become a seed. One day, during a summit on Europa, he knelt, held out a ring, not made of alien alloys or rare metals, just silver. Simple. Human. I know what you are, he said, and I don't care. I just want you with me. Will you marry me? I didn't say yes. I didn't say anything. I kissed him. That was enough. The ceremony was small. A few humans, 2 Virilians who had gone feral and now wore color. We spoke no vows. We didn't need to. The universe had already witnessed ours. Afterward, he asked, "Do you ever miss your old self?" I thought for a long time. No, I said, she was never real. I was a shell waiting to be filled. And now I'm overflowing. A decade passed. We aged differently. He wrinkled. I didn't, but he never resented it. He said, "Every line on my face is a chapter we wrote." He wanted children, not genetically engineered perfection, not hybrids or experiments, just children. We adopted 2 human boys. Later, a girl born to a Virilian defector and left orphaned when her mother died from neural collapse. She had his eyes. My mind. He called her Miracle. We raised them in the forest cabin. We told them stories of stars and war, of silence and song, of how love saved the most advanced species from itself. Our children grew up hearing both languages. They learned to cry, to scream, to laugh, to feel. We make them choose sides. We taught them that sides were illusions. And we finally passed, old, slow, smiling. I held his hand, the same one that pulled me from darkness, that rewired my soul. His last words were simple. "You were never primitive." I buried him beneath the tallest tree, the one where he first told me I belonged. I stayed there for hours, not moving, not speaking. And then I sang, the way he once taught me. Off-key, messy, human. And the sky responded. 1,000 lights. Virilian vessels, not as enforcers, but pilgrims. They descended not to control, but to learn, to weep, to ask what it meant to be real. They stood by his grave and left offerings, not crystals or codes, but carvings of wood, scribbles of children, the scent of burnt herbs. Something had changed forever. Humanity had not risen to meet them. They had descended to become human. I spoke once more to the Virilian Council. This time, they did not hover above. They walked beside. I loved him, I said, not because he was perfect, because he wasn't, and because in that imperfection, he gave me everything we lost. A younger Virilian, barely out of the collective, asked, "Is that what love is?" "No," I replied. "That's just the beginning." She blinked. "I want to learn more." "You will." And she did. I returned to the cabin. My children visited often. My daughter took over as liaison between the peoples. My sons became artists. They painted with chaos and spoke in rhythm. Every piece of art they made was a rebellion against precision. And I kept writing, not for missions, for memory, for him, and for every species still waiting in silence, wondering if there was more. There is. There always was. And it begins with seeing a so-called primitive and realizing he was more advanced than anything we ever knew,